Years ago, I found myself in a place of total destruction. I had really dug a hole so deep that I didn't know how it'd ever get out. Most of my friends were climbing the hill of success in life, but I was just trying to get back to ground zero. Why? I was an FNG. We used to call the new guys in the army FNGs for fucking new guy, but I like to refer to it as FNG fucking nice guy. Now, I had hopelessly compromised all of my values, and as a result, I was getting divorced for a second time. I had an addiction to alcohol. I was having my house foreclosed on, and I had to declare bankruptcy. In my recovery, my sponsor said to me, Chuck, the reason you're suffering is because you're out of integrity. I didn't know what that meant. I mean, I had an idea of what integrity meant, but I really didn't have an in depth knowledge. So I thought to myself, if integrity is the missing ingredient, let's figure out exactly what it is. And what I found was that it wasn't one thing, but an integration of things. Aristotle said the sum is greater than the whole of its parts, meaning integration, the integration of parts creates a higher purpose. Like a watch serves its purpose when it tells time and all the sprockets and springs are working together. Take one little sprocket, bend it slightly, and it no longer works. It no longer serves its purpose. Integrity is like this. It's not just one thing, but it's many things working together. In my research, I found that there were 16 values that when we work together, we don't feel the pain and suffering as much. When our virtues are working together, we serve our higher purpose, and I believe our higher purpose is to love. The problem is you can't love, especially yourself, if you're out of integrity. So my name's Chuck Chapman. I'm the host today for the Nice Guys Show. I'm here with Faisal and Ari, and the three of us are certified Nice Guy coaches, and we're dedicated to helping men become the best version of themselves. And today, I'm going to talk about my new book, Finding Your Way Without Losing Yourself, The Path of Integrity. Welcome to the show. Ari, Faisal, how you guys doing?
Hey,
Awesome.
Chuck, congratulations on your book. Yeah, I'm really excited to learn more about it, and obviously what integrity means, and what the guys can get from that book as well. So, first of all, how do you feel launching your book? It's your first one, right?
Yeah, my first real book. I mean, I launched. It's a real book. I launched the No More Mr. Nice Guy 30-day recovery journal a few
Spoken
years
like a
ago.
true nice guy.
I know, right? Yeah, I don't have a real degree. I have a degree from a fake college. Yeah,
Do you
but
have a
I
real life?
yeah. No, the book is was a passion project for sure. I've been working on it for about the last 5 years, and just kind of every day doing a little bit of it, and finally got to the point where I was ready to launch it into the world. So yeah, pretty excited about it for sure.
So, I love the concept of having integrity as a key pillar. Why integrity? I mean, like, how are guys missing integrity in their life?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question. And I think a lot of it has to do with, at least I found for myself, was I didn't really have an understanding of what integrity was. I mean, I heard the word, and oftentimes I'll ask my clients, what does the word integrity mean to you? And I get things like, well, it's like keeping your word or, following through, these kind of things. And it becomes pretty clear pretty quickly if you ask for a definition. Guys have an idea of what it is, but not really well defined. And and so that was my case as well. When we ask each other, say, do you have integrity? Oh yeah, I have integrity. Well, what is integrity? Uh, so, you know, so one of the things about this book was to help really define the idea of what integrity is, and to give guys a roadmap to be able to figure that out. And so there's each chapter breaks down into a virtue. So there's 16 virtues. Now, I don't expect everybody to memorize all 16. What I do is I say, read through the book and pick out your top five. And those top five, focus on growing those in your life. And so integrity is really about living your best life. And like I said in the intro, I believe when we live in integrity, what happens is we have more capacity to love others and love ourselves. And one of the things that the nice guy's terrible at is loving himself. And I think one of the reasons he doesn't love himself is because he's filled with a lot of shame. And a lot of the shame comes from, I'm not in alignment with my integrity. But if I've not defined what integrity is for me, how do I know how to get back into alignment?
Oh, I
So,
like that.
Yeah,
so Chuck, what are your top 5 virtues?
that's a great question. So my top five are courage, humility, tenacity, grace, and forgiveness.
Are those the things that you lack the most in?
Those are the ones that I tend to have the most struggle with. Yeah, which is often what I will say about, our core values are generally the ones that we find the most difficult to do. Like, you know, um, it might be honesty. You know, nice guys will often say, "Yeah, I'm pretty honest." What is that? Pretty honest? You either are or you're not, right? Um, but yeah, I often find within myself. I mean, all of these things, all of the virtues are actually difficult, right? Because they're not natural. I mean, it's not natural to be courageous. It's not natural to be generous. It's not natural to be forgiving. The natural thing is to be selfish, to be stingy, to, hold back in the face of fear. And so the unnatural thing is to do these virtues, to live with these virtues. And one of the things I kind of bring out in the book is that because they're not natural, they are overriding nature, therefore they are supernatural, which then implies that this comes from the deeper part within us, what I would call the higher self, or the you that's you. And that I would define as the spiritual part of yourself.
So are the virtues coming from the higher self, and whereas not being generous, not being forgiving is coming from I guess what I was interpreting that as coming from more from like the primal aspect of us.
Right,
Yeah. So when we
right,
tap
right.
in, so when we tap into, the primal part, I'm more scared and I'm more fearful. When we tap into a higher self, I'm stepping more into courage.
Right, right. One of my favorite quotes is courage isn't the absence of fear, it's the ability to move forward in the face of fear. So, natural thing is to feel afraid, to act cowardice. The unnatural thing is to be courageous and push through the tension into the face of fear and act courageously. So those things aren't natural, and as a result, I think every one of these virtues is difficult because there's a tension on which you have to push through the nature part of yourself that wants to hold back or tell a lie or protect yourself, these kind of things, and do the thing that's harder to do.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love what you said about integrity, because when I hear the word integrity, all I'm, all I kind of like the initial programming was, keeping my word, saying what I want, and when you look at the word integrity or inter, it means wholeness as well. So I like how you've put 16 virtues to signify its integrity means wholeness. These are the 16 virtues you need to develop that wholeness as well. I've got a question about, you're writing a book, right? So I'm really interested in book as well, because I'm writing one myself.
Yeah,
And so it took you 5 years. I know Dr. Glover, it took him like nearly 7 years
yeah.
to get the book out from Safer. When you first started to for being it published, was there any realization you had, thought you thought, okay, what you didn't know then, but you know now? Was there any moments of like, aha, this is the big part?
Yeah, I didn't know what I was getting into when I decided to do this, but one of my core values is tenacity, and tenacity is basically like you don't quit, and you might pivot, but you don't quit. And so when I sat down to write this book, I had no idea the undertaking this would actually be. I know it was going to be hard, right? But I didn't realize the massive, like, getting up every morning at 5 a.m., sitting down at the computer, working for, an hour on my book every day, writing stuff that just sucked, because you write something and it's like, oh, this is horrible, this is terrible. And then you come back a little while later and you rewrite it and it's like, okay, that's better, and then you're like, write it again. You're like, oh, it's actually pretty good. So there's a whole process to it of rather than just, sitting down and writing something. The first drafts of my book look nothing like the book that's published. And so I think the audacity of saying you're going to write a book is a pretty big
You're
undertaking.
practicing the virtues by writing the
Yeah,
book.
totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was one of the things where it kind of kept me going. And when I talk about in the chapter of tenacity, your why has to be big enough to keep you going through those times or you want to quit. And for me, the why was just I wanted to live in integrity. So if I generally try this when it comes to tenacity, if I'm making a decision to do something, the decision is irrevocable. I'm going to do this. You know, if it's not, a complete hell yes, then I'm not going to commit to it. I have no problem with saying, you know what, I might do this, but I'm in the process right now of still figuring out if I want to do that.
Did you ever want to give up?
Every day. I wanted to give up until the moment we hit publish. you know, I mean, it's like you're practicing courage. Like, I write pretty personal in the book. I talk about my life and how alcohol and just being out of integrity. Like I said, really got me to a bottomless pit. It felt like, and so to put yourself out there and be vulnerable to the world, that is it's a big act of courage. Me saying that is not a very big act of humility. So, yeah,
Yeah. When I read that about, I think it was your sponsor,
yeah,
saying, "Where are you out of integrity?"
yeah,
Um, that was the cause of your suffering,
mm-hmm.
and how powerful that was. And it made me think about mainstream mental health treatment. That I don't feel like its integrity is talked about that much.
Yeah, I agree. That was one of the things that kind of came up for me, also doing in my work as a therapist. That I think a lot of mental illness can be traced back to small um, small things, just the telling a white lie, and then it becomes bigger and bigger. And then you have to hold on to this. And then you've got anxiety around it because you're having to hold on to this lie. Yeah. And I think also just when you look at yourself, and especially nice guys and around shame, we've developed all of this evidence that says, look, I really am a piece of shit, right? I've lied, I cheated, I'm cowardly. And the point that I bring out in the book is that anybody at any time can shift that by just committing to figuring out what integrity means for you and walking in integrity. And I also say in the book that we're never fully in integrity. We're always being pushed in and out of it. Where the real integrity lies is in my ability to say, oh, I'm out of integrity. Let's get back in. What's the next right thing to do?
I love that. So, yeah, I'm just thinking that when we focus too much on symptoms like depression or anxiety, we're kind of missing the boat.
Mm-hmm.
We're treating the symptoms.
Yeah. That's one of my hopes for the book was that it will reach people in the recovery world and the mental health world. Everybody, I think, can benefit from it. But I think that truly, if you're suffering, right, you are basically there's something inside of you that knows deep down in that soul part of yourself that you're not right, you know. And I think that going back to the nice guy syndrome, nice guy believes that if anybody found out who I really was, in other words, all this darkness inside of me, they wouldn't like, love, and accept me. And if they wouldn't like, love, and accept me, how do I like, love, and accept myself? But when I practice, so for example, something scary, I want to have a conversation with somebody, but I'm afraid to have the conversation. So I practice courage. I have the conversation. Afterwards, I go, that actually wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. And I'm kind of happy with myself. I walked in integrity. And the Buddha said, pain is inevitable, suffering is optional. And I think that the pain, life is pain, but we make it so much worse by our suffering, by just not leaning into the tension to do the things that what traditionally, they've been called virtues. And I think our society and culture in a lot of ways have lost the idea of virtue, because oftentimes it's tied to the church. And it's we've seen happen so many times of the hypocrisy that happens in churches and people who say they walk in integrity but truly don't.
Yeah, I really resonate with that part as well. Growing up around some people that were religious, but what I found was there was really two faces to them as well. What they would say and what they would actually do, and I just found that hypocrisy really difficult to
Mm-hmm.
fathom at a young age. Um, so, I love the fact that you got virtues. I've been really getting into stoicism as well. And they have the virtues. Who were you like your inspirations from history?
Of definitely the Stoics, Seneca and Marcus Aurelius. Um, there, I learned so much about virtues from these guys. In fact, the four Stoic virtues of courage, wisdom, temperance, and justice. Those are, um, one, four. I can't do the math in my head, but they're basically, they're they're like you would if you took those four virtues like on a compass, north, south, east, west, that would be the virtues that I pulled out. And so under courage, for example, then courage is things like assertiveness, tenacity, loyalty. Under temperance, self-control, excellence. Under justice, grace, empathy, forgiveness. So they kind of line up in the way that the Stoics talked about the four virtues.
Yeah, I really like that because it kind of breaks it down as well. Because the four Stoic virtues, and sometimes you just need that division more just to help you understand the framework
Easier to
more. It's
remember
like,
four.
yeah, it's easy to remember four, but when you're actually, like applying it, studying it, it's like, okay, so how does, temperance come into this or justice come into that? But when you've got other virtues that are coming in, it's a really great way. In your book, is it something that, I'm just going through the book right now because it's only been out a few days. Is there something that you have that we can find nowhere else? Is there something in there?
Um, the
The special sauce.
special sauce.
Yeah,
The
what's
special
what's
sauce.
what's the thing
Well,
that
well, there's nothing new under the sun, right? There's uh, hardly anything that's new. But I think what I do is maybe introduce people to ideas that are ancient, and therefore it becomes new. We've forgotten a lot of ancient wisdoms, whether it's Stoicism, Buddhism, Christianity, even um, the different world religions and things like that. They all come from a place of trying to solve the problem of pain in our lives. And as many charlatans and people who um, had nefarious things that they did with the different religions, philosophies, whatever, there's just as many people that were pure. And I think to kind of remember not throwing the baby out with the bathwater. Talked about in the book, for me, it was one of the most painful things was actually having to come to terms with that this was a spiritual act, because I grew up in the church and I saw the hypocrisy and experienced the spiritual abuse that happened there. And so pushing through that and being able to see the good and the bad, the yin and the yang, that everything has a shadow and a light. And if I just focus on the shadow, if I just focus on the darkness, then that's what I'm going to get.
I
I had
love
one.
that you I love the fact you're bringing in a lot of the inner game, the inner work,
It's all inner work.
and
Yeah.
when it is, and when you mentioned about we've lost a lot of principles, a lot of virtues on the way, and I think that's probably where I see again mental health deteriorating is because we are very away from our higher self and the virtues,
Mhm.
the principles, and that's what they're there for. They're there in order to safeguard us. Otherwise, if we don't have those order, we have chaos. So
Absolutely.
I think this is such a must for modern day society.
Thanks.
I was just going to ask, one thing you brought up in the group was about, or not in the group, in the book, you brought up integrity groups,
Hmm.
which to me sounded like a new thing. I mean, where do I find an integrity group?
Well, one of the things that I talk about in the book is there's strength in numbers, right? Part of the spiritual aspect of it is finding a power greater than yourself to help you live out these virtues. And I've found for myself that the power greater than myself is oftentimes group. I've lost weight in groups. I got sober in a group. I have men's groups that help me stay accountable. And so in the book, I present the idea of creating your own integrity group, which is essentially you take the book, the 16 virtues, you call up a couple guys and you say, hey, Saturday morning, 8 o'clock at this coffee shop, I got this book. We're going to run through this. And we're just going to help each other with our integrity and live lives of integrity, interested in working on creating more integrity in your life. And my dream is that maybe one day there'll be all these little integrity groups that are happening all over the world, little franchises of these groups that happened as a result of this book. That would be probably beyond my wildest dreams to see something like that happen.
And
But it takes courage.
a t-shirt with your picture on it, right?
A t-shirt with, yeah, takes courage to ask somebody, hey, come join me on this journey. Yeah, it takes tenacity to show up every week. It takes the
Mm.
temperance to get along with people in the group. So all of these things apply to that, and I think that the way that we can best practice integrity in our life is through having interactions with other people, especially like-minded guys or girls.
I love that. I think that's such a purposeful thing to do and bring that to the world as well, create your own integrity. I mean, that really just inspired me as well because there's some aspects in my life I really want to, elevate.
Hmm.
And, and just hearing that, okay, because, belong to a group, belong to people who are, you know, on their journey, also people who are doing well in that as well. And like you said, I found a lot of healing in men's group and safety in numbers. That's such a great message because a lot of nice guys are trying to do everything on their own, like
Yeah.
the lone wolf trying to be I got this myself. But yeah, that's the worst thing you can do, and that really slows down, and it really reflects the fact that we have a lot of mental health issues because we try and isolate ourselves so much. So that's
Hmm.
such a great message. Yeah, integrity group, I love that. So Chuck, where can we get this book for? How can we get hold of this?
Well, you can get it pretty much anywhere books are sold online. Amazon.com right now, and depending on when you're listening to this, but the first few weeks is going to the ebooks on sale for 99 cents. It's going to go back up, in a few weeks to the regular price of nine, whatever. So Amazon.com, you can get it at Barnes and Noble, pretty much any place that books are sold online.
All right, one more question, and then I'm gonna leave it to you. What does your, family, your wife, and everyone think of the book?
That's a whole nother weird situation. So family. My wife likes it, of course. I mean, she's like, "Oh, this is so good." She's maybe biased. Uh, my family, my extended family, they're all thrilled with it. I think, but
The ones who aren't in the book.
yeah, 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 exactly. Um, my family's just weird. There's not a lot of expression of things. I mean, my mom. I'll give my shout out to my mom. She did call me and say, I'm really proud of you. So there's that. But my family's pretty quiet and reserved and does not give a lot of praise ever. Criticism, we'll give you that in spades. Praise, on the other hand, that sometimes is a little shortcoming. But at the same time, yeah, like my parents, I know they've always said that they're proud of me, and so I got to give them that. But sometimes, the quietness of it, you assume, the worst, which is probably not a good act of integrity. I should assume more positivity. Yeah. Hey guys, I really appreciate you taking the time to do this podcast and talk about my book. Like I said, it's a passion project. It's something that I found really beneficial in my own work to just ask myself these questions. When I'm confronted with a decision, what's going to keep me in integrity? Do I need courage? Do I need wisdom? Do I need self-control? Do I need grace? And just kind of asking myself these questions helps me move forward and do the thing that isn't natural. So I really appreciate you guys taking the time to talk about the book. So if you guys like this podcast, please like, subscribe, give us a thumbs up. If you're listening to this on a podcast platform, give us a 5-star review. If you're watching this on YouTube, like, subscribe, and check out, we did one a while back, episode 29, on evolving beyond the nice guy into a high valued man. And I think that actually segues well with this podcast. In becoming a high value man is, what is value, and virtues and values, I think, are sometimes mean very similar things. So check that out. Thanks again for tuning in to The Nice Guy Show, and we will see you guys next time.
You've been listening to The Nice Guy Show with certified Nice Guy recovery coaches Ari Graff, Chuck Chapman, and Faisal Kokar. Be sure to subscribe to this channel so you can listen to our latest episodes, and visit us on www.theniceguyshow.com. If you have any topics you'd like to hear us discuss, send us an email at support@theniceguyshow.com. Thanks for listening.